Greetings to all my listeners and subscribers out there. I am Mark Hasara, host of the Lessons from the Cockpit show. For over 60 years, I've been an aviation nut. On the Lessons from the Cockpit show, we interview some of the most fascinating and intriguing pilots, aircrew members, maintainers, and just aviation enthusiasts. We want to hear their stories, but more importantly, what did they learn from being in these extreme and extraordinary military, commercial, and even private aviation environments? The reason I do this show, I want to illustrate how does the aviation world work, but more importantly, increase critical thinking skills both in the air and on the ground. And the story you're going to hear today has been told before on a previous episode that I'm reposting because of what happened Tuesday night. This episode of the Lessons from the Cockpit show is brought to you by Wall Pilot, custom aviation art for the walls of your home, office, or hangar. These are beautiful 4, 6, and 8-foot long prints that you can peel off and stick to your walls, like the KC-135 here behind me. They're extremely detailed. You can even read the stenciling on the arming handles of the sidewinders. So 160 ready to print right now if you go to wallpilot.com, but we also do custom work. If there's an airplane that you've wanted on your wall for a long time with your name on it from a particular unit, a particular tail number, even a custom weapons load, chances are we can do it for you. We've got 800 drawings that we can pick from. So go to wallpilot.com and order either some of the ready to print or get one of the custom prints, okay? Just fill out the form and we can do that. As I mentioned, all of us watched the State of the Union address, and at the very end, 100-year-old retired Navy Captain Royce Williams was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for something that he did on the 18th of November, 1952. One of, if not the longest, dogfight against enemy aircraft ever, 35 minutes, against 7 Russian-flown MiG-15s. About a year and a half ago, I interviewed him. And what I want to do is republish that interview because they talked a lot about, he couldn't talk about his experience. And in this episode, he tells you why. And his reaction of his wife the first time she read about those events in November 1952. So, grab an adult beverage of your choice, sit down, strap in, and let's go listen to Navy Captain Royce Williams tell his story of his Congressional Medal of Honor event and why he couldn't talk about it.
Tonight we've celebrated many truly extraordinary American patriots, but there is one last living legend to honor before we go. He is one more heroic American aviator. Navy fighter pilot Royce Williams served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, flying more than 220 missions. In the skies over Korea in 1952, Royce was in the dogfight of a lifetime, legendary dogfight. Flying through blizzard conditions, his squadron was ambushed by 7 Soviet fighter planes. It was his first aerial combat of the war, and despite being massively outnumbered and outgunned, Royce led the takedown of 4 enemy jets and almost destroyed the others, vanquishing his adversaries while taking 263 bullets to his own plane and being seriously hurt. His story was secret for over 50 years. He didn't even want to tell his wife, but the legend grew and grew. But tonight, at 100 years old, this brave Navy captain is finally getting the recognition he deserves. He was a legend long before this evening. Royce, please stand up, and I will ask the First Lady of the United States to present Captain Royce Williams with his Congressional Medal of Honor.
Welcome to the Lessons from the Cockpit show, Captain Royce Williams. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing quite well, thank you.
It's an honor to have you on, sir, to talk about your experiences in the Korean War and flying in Vietnam. And you have a very unusual story that we'll get into here in a minute. But Royce, tell all my listeners a little bit about your history and how you became interested in becoming a Navy pilot.
My dad was a machine gunner in the army in France in World War I, very patriotic, head of the American Legion in Wilmot, South Dakota. And as such, my brother and I got very interested in everything patriotic. If there was a parade, we were either in it or watching it. And so those things were in our background. But aviation-wise, we had a second cousin that was doing wonderful work with the weather department, flying out of Fargo, North Dakota in an open cockpit biplane that was specially rigged. He would get up to 32,000 feet in that. And when I was flying those kind of airplanes, I didn't get anywhere near that altitude. But following that, and every time we'd have airplanes come to the area, use our pastures and whatnot, sell tickets or just show off, we would run to that pasture about a mile outside of town and witness and hang out and dream about it. So both my brother and I had aviation in mind as kids. We called Lindsay or Charles Lindbergh, and Roscoe Turner was the hero of the day. Royce was close enough. He agreed to call me Roscoe. So we were sort of off and running. And later on, when we moved to Minnesota, became friends of a barnstormer there to a county fair, sell tickets, wipe the airplane down for the sake of just getting airborne. So we both thought that naval aviation was hot stuff. And as time went on and your career planning and whatnot, that was certainly one of the choices. Then when World War II started, December 7th, 41, we jumped in pretty soon after that. I joined in early the Minnesota Guard, and I trained in Camp Ripley, Minnesota, and I became a corporal. And when I turned 17, I was eligible for naval aviation, and I switched over and became a sailor.
So where did you go to pilot training at?
I started off in Navy after my tour in infantry at boot camp in Corpus Christi, Minnesota, Texas. Mm-hmm. And then time went on, waiting for my induction, the cadet program, I was in a squadron there at Corpus Christi of working sailor type of things. And my first opportunity to sort of speak drive in an airplane. We had a hurricane coming and they needed a lot of people to taxi the airplane, those that got to taxi a amphibious airplane with designed to fly off cruisers or be catapulted, and then the maneuver of the ship, which would calm the seas, make it rather smooth with a device. So when a spot became available, I changed into a cadet program and started in Murray, Kentucky. It's called the Flight Preparatory School. I went from there to Murray, Kentucky, the War Training School, WTS, and that's where I started my first flying with an instructor who was a crop duster, very interesting guy, and we were flying Boeing N3Ns. They're open cockpit, biplane, canvas and stick prop airplane. From there, I went to University of Georgia, pre-flight. Very interesting time with preparation for becoming an officer. Then I went to Memphis, Tennessee, and flew again open cockpit in the N2S, which was used by all services for training at that time. I continued while I'm still a cadet.
So tell me what you were thinking when you made your first carrier approach and arrested landing. What was that like?
Well, I got a whole lot more training before I got to that. I went to Pensacola, Florida, and flew the SNV, which was a low-wing airplane made out of metal. Getting there, following that, the SNJ, which was famous as a fighter airplane in South America, but we used it throughout our training. A very nice airplane, and off and on as a utility later on in my career. In the Douglas Dauntless, the Donner, very big in the war, especially in the battle of Midway. And I got my wings and I went to for the fighter program, and I was flying the F6F Hellcat out of Opelika, which is in Miami, Florida. Upon completion of that, I went to carrier qualification at Pensacola on the USS Ranger CV4, first carrier built from the keel up as an aircraft carrier. From then on, I was sent to operation squadrons, and the rest is history. 37 years of military life until retirement. The carrier qualification was my first course flying off an aircraft carrier. And as you asked, it is a very interesting procedure. You're trained for on land before you are ready to actually go on the ship. I enjoyed it, did very well. And then from there on, I was assigned to carrier operation fighter squadrons.
Royce, F6F Hellcat is one of my all-time favorite airplanes.
And my all-time favorite airplane was the F-8F Bearcat. Very great performer. Came in during World War II, but never saw service. Too bad, because it was a great performer, and we love to tangle with the Air Force P-51, because our airplane was superior.
See, a lot of people don't know that, Royce, that the Bearcat was, oh man, I mean, that great, big, huge engine. You guys had lots of power in that airplane.
We could loop on takeoff.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we had power. That engine was great.
So, Royce, when did you make the transition from prop-driven airplanes to jets?
I joined the Navy when I was 16. I joined the Army. And so I finished high school and made regular Navy, and they wanted all their officers to have at least 2 years of college. So after a couple of tours in the South Pacific, I was sent to the University of Minnesota to get 18 months, hoping a lesser degree. But during that time, I got a baccalaureate degree and still had a quarter due me. And so they sent me to Monterey, the postgraduate school. So right following that was the Korean War.
Mhm. So what was the first jet you flew?
The F9F5. That was by luck. I with my bride was driving by Miramar, where the naval area, and I saw the airplanes line up there from the air wing that I had just been ordered to. I was ordered to a Corsair squadron because I was qualified in that, and that was one of the squadrons in the air group. But I saw the jets, and I had a hankering to fly them. I found that the commanding officer was a friend I had known before, and I phoned him and told him my hope, and he said he thought he might be able to turn the trick, which he did, and my orders were changed to the Panther F9F5 squadron.
That must have been very interesting, going from a prop airplane to a jet, you know, with all that kind of speed and power behind it. And
well, actually, it was easier to fly than a propeller airplane, where you have a lot of adjustments to make with altitude and speed and whatever trim you need for landing, etc. Adjusting for the fuel and torque, which you don't have on a jet. The thrust that drives the airplane goes directly through, and you don't have to use a whole lot of rudder unless you want to make a hard turn.
And the Panther could carry bombs and rockets, had the 4 guns up front. Were they 50 caliber guns or were they 20 millimeter guns?
20 millimeter. That was a standard for the Navy. The Air Force, in their early F-86s and dueling with the MiGs in their western half of Korea, up at the Yalu with MiG-15s flown by North Korean, Chinese, and Russian pilots out of bases in China, with the Yalu River separating North Korea and China at that point. And farther westwards, east, I mean, was also the dividing point with Soviet Union. And the, what was the point? Oh, yeah, the weaponry.
Yeah.
The Air Force was pretty much after headlines and not really supportive of the ground forces. They were tackling the MiGs in the air.
Mhm.
And on the eastern half of North Korea, we had the responsibility for the war, and mainly it was in support storage areas and bridges, trains, marshalling areas, trucks, all sorts of logistic items, and close air support for the troops on the ground. Our training was primarily air to ground. Our training for air to air was not maneuvering; it was just gunnery.
Mhm.
Oh, and regarding what I wanted to say was the F-86 early on had 50 caliber machine guns, and they found that getting behind a MiG and firing at it, that the bullet would be diverted by the thrust of the exhaust of the MiG, so that the bullet didn't run true and strike the aircraft, but would be sent off to the side, not very useful. So they, in turn, changed over and used the 20 millimeter, which was a wonderful gun system.
Royce, you just told me something I didn't know about the 50 caliber bullets in the jet exhaust. I'd never heard that. That is, but you
Yeah.
can see why, because it's not a big bullet, you know, and you're right. The
Yeah, it
F-86s, when they went to 20
didn't have-
millimeter, it was incredible.
Yeah, they didn't have the mass to penetrate, and they would have gun camera film where they'd see the tracers change course.
Oh, jeez. So what was your first combat mission? What did you fly? What kind of mission did you fly in your very first combat mission?
Well, I was in World War II, and all of it was training and switching services, etc. So I didn't get my wings until the end of the war and never got fully deployed. I trained a lot later in South Pacific and made several missions down there. And at one point, thought war in South Vietnam, which was a French colony at that time, and they were actually fighting with them to hold their colonial guests. And the promise of President Eisenhower we were going to and we were ready and had targets and everything. When she said run for after the logistics disruption in North Korea, and I was flying off the aircraft carrier USS Recipient, and I'm dropping bombs and firing rockets at trucks and anything carrying weapons to support the enemy.
Royce, when you were flying down in Indochina, did you ever think that you'd come back there and be dropping bombs over Vietnam again?
I majored in geopolitics I find that almost anything is possible. And what triggers a war is political decision, not a military decision.
Yeah.
So I go with the flow, sworn to support the Constitution and superior authority, the president.
Yeah. So Royce, let's talk about the day that you tangled with a bunch of MiG-15s.
Yes.
You're up on a combat air patrol mission, and some very interesting things happened, didn't they?
Indeed. Our intelligence told us that the MiGs didn't fly over water. They just didn't feel the need. They weren't fighting America, or the Brits had aircraft carriers up there also. So we have always kept a CAP, Combat Air Patrol, over the Navy task force, which we didn't feel very threatened. It did happen on a couple of occasions, but not normally. But we couldn't strike some of the major warehouses and manufacturing. And so Admiral Jocko Clark and the planners decided to move a task force up closer to the Yellow River on eastern half of North Korea. And I was on the first mission of the day, which was in good weather, and striking Horiong targets of warehousing and manufacturing. We had 3 carriers and probably 20 destroyers and support ships. Also, the USS Missouri was there, which was the flagship for Admiral Jocko Clark. So when I got back from the first mission, the weather had changed terribly, and we were in a big snowstorm blizzard. And I was told on landing to get a quick bite to eat, and you're on the next combat air patrol mission. We were briefed, formed up 4 airplanes, hadn't flown with any of these guys before. We were sort of a makeup because of one reason or another, we hadn't the same number of combat flights as some of our squadron mates. So it was sort of strange. The leader of the group, which is the division, 4 airplanes, was a reserve Navy lieutenant because of seniority, and I had probably more experience than he did. But and then he had a Naval Academy lieutenant junior grade Middleton as his wingman. I was the section leader, which is the other half of the division, and I had a wingman that I knew well, but had never flown with, Dave Rollins, also lieutenant junior grade. Both the leader and myself were lieutenants. And we got the standard briefing that don't really expect encounter with enemy aircraft. But lo and behold, surprise, it happened. So you want me to go in detail bit by bit, but it turned out to be an hour and a half flight of 35 minutes of combat, which is the only time probably ever that happened. Normally, combat is from a few seconds to maybe 5 minutes at most. But
that's an eternity in air combat, Royce. 35 minutes. That's an eternity.
That's right.
So how did you find out? What was your first indication that you had MiGs that were coming up to you?
We launched, and this combined. Launched and formed up a division formation under the clouds, which the base was around 400 to 500 feet. And outside of that, low visibility with snow. We climbed through the clouds and come on top in the clear air at arriving at 12,000 feet. While we were climbing, we got information from our controller, the Combat Information Center, that they had inbound bogies. It means unidentified aircraft flying toward us. When we got on top, I saw to the north, some distance, extreme altitude, 7 contrails. And they were coming from an area that was suspicious because we had moved from 38th parallel, where the task force usually operated, to where the group of ships were now off Chongjin, a major city on the coast of North Korea. And that put us maybe 100 miles from the Soviet Union. And the city, Horyong, was right on the Yalu River, which separates the Soviet Union and North Korea. So what happened with all 3 ships sending attacks in the morning riled up the Soviets to where they launched a lot of airplanes, and there was a lot of chatter. Obviously, they were disturbed. However, we didn't go to their territory or harm them in any way, but they sent out their defenses, and as a part of it, they sent these 7 MiGs to come out and attack the Navy task force. So as that happened, the division leader and his wingman were told to orbit the task force, to go back home of sorts. The fuel system wasn't, or was potentially not operating properly. So they were sent just to remain over the task force, and I took the lead. And as the MiGs passed over me, I could see their platform, and I knew they were MiG aircraft, and I reported it as such. And I was directed that to intercept, and that was my target. So my wingman and I, at full throttle, started in their direction. As they passed over, so they headed back north. I thought probably going back to land or get out of our area. I got to 26,000 feet. By this time, the 7 aircraft were probably 40 miles or so north of me, and they split into 2 groups of 4 going off to the right and 3 off to the left to bracket me, and diving out of the extreme altitude, which could have been 55,000 feet, which they were known to operate, but they're high above me. And as they dove down, they stopped the contrails, and I no longer had them in sight, and reported lost contact to the controllers. And they said they lost them too as they split into a smaller group. Their radar didn't track them anymore. So they instructed me to head back toward the task force, and I would be setting up a barricade of circling to be at the ready between the last contact site and the task force to intercept should they come in that direction. Well, I didn't expect them, but the next thing you know, while I was hailing the turn, here come 4 of them at my 10 o'clock position from the nose off to my left, about 15 degrees, and they were all shooting, all 4 of them shooting. So they started this thing, and
it's all their fault.
They are all their fault. Yeah. As they came in shooting, I saw I maneuvered in a hard left turn and ended up in good firing position on their tail end Charlie. And with a short burst, he dropped out of formation and started smoking. And I continued to track the remaining three, and my wingman left me and followed the guy that was going down. And so I didn't see him again, but he did pop up at the end of all this when I was shot up and out of ammunition and trying to go home. This all took place in clear air. The frontal system that was over the task force was off to the south of us, and where I was, it was clear all the way down to the ocean. Well, from there on, the fight was on, and it gets very involved from this point, and now down to 6 versus 1, and that continued till I got out of ammunition, then shot up and tried to get back home with a poor performing airplane.
And you have to land on a carrier and it's snowing around the carrier?
Yes, heavy seas, ship pitching violently. Yeah, rough weather.
But you continue in this dogfight and you get 3 more of them, don't you?
At least. The latest history book out of Russia by Igor Sigev or whatever. I have his book, and he covers all of the combat missions between North Korea and its friends and Americans and Brits. And he covers my incident toward the end because that was getting close to the truce in 1953. So this was November 18th of 1952. So in his coverage, he notes this, that they sent out a group of airplanes to tackle with the Americans, and then as he covered all the others as well, as including George Davis being shot down, but item in individual fight by individual fight, and where he covers me, of the 7 airplanes that were sent out, only one of them got back to the base. 2 were on their way back, but one was losing fuel, I suppose battle damage, and didn't make it and crashed in the ocean and killed the pilot. Oh. So it's not exactly known how many. It might have been 6, but I'm credited with 4 because I have their names. There's a 5th name floating around someplace, and I guess I have it in record somewhere, but I haven't run across it lately.
Yes.
So it's hard to tell exactly how many, but the remnant went back. And I was, after all this, which is jumping the gun here a bit, this was the last day on the line of combat for the Recipient. For this period, it was sent back to Yokosuka to replenish and get ready to go back out again and give some R&R time to the crews. Well, I was instructed to report to Admiral Briscoe at his headquarters in Yokosuka, and he was the senior Navy pilot in Western Pacific, or Navy Admiral. He's Vice Admiral Briscoe. And that was an interesting meeting. When I first came in, I recognized a friend of mine was his aide. Asked him what's going on. He said, I don't know, but the Admiral wants to see you right away. And he did. So I was taken over his office and they closed the door. And was the admiral and his intelligence staff officer who didn't engage in the conversation, but was present at our conversation. And he first off says, "What was that crazy information sent by the Oriskany, the carrier I was flying from, covering this mission? It didn't make sense to him. It may have to everybody else, and the Navy accepted it, but it was just a made-up story from our intelligence officer who, under great pressure, had to report to Washington. And he didn't know much, but he made up a story and tried to share the glory with those involved. So he gave a little credit to everybody. So this was a story, and he knew better because we had the first operational event for the newly formed Naval National Security Agency, NSA. Well, actually, it was the beginning of it was forces from the Navy and probably the Air Force aboard the USS Helena, which was right off the coast of Vladivostok, where these airplanes were flying from. And they had this group with radar capability and Russian speaking, listening to the Soviet conversations. They were picked up where they were the land-based radar group telling this flight to engage, to advance power and engage. And that started it all. That was reported on a very, very classified report, top secret, a canoe. Canoe is a name added to information from NSA sources. So they informed the admiral that they had this capability. They were on the scene. They knew what took place as far as what they could learn from chatter, etc. And they wanted to tell that pilot that he got at least 3. So the later Russians coming out and saying 4 pretty much jived with the NSA report, which of course went nowhere. The NSA has a way of keeping secrets.
Yes,
and,
they do.
There's no way you're going to break them down. I'm sure they still have all the data we're looking for, including the camera film and everything, but you can't get them to budge. That's just nowhere.
Well, see, that's what I was going to ask, Royce,
we went,
because you've got gun camera. I mean, you've got a gun camera in the Panther,
yeah,
and it's recording all of this too at the same
Yes.
time. Did somebody take your gun camera film when you landed and say, hey, we're going to go
Yeah.
develop this and take a look at it?
I never saw it. I don't know anybody that did see it, but it's out there someplace, I'm sure.
Wow. Well,
There's been an awfully lot of effort trying to track it down. Admiral Shelton, I've got to put his name into this. He was the head of the selection committee for Golden Eagles, a Navy organization that they pick people that they made significant contribution to naval aviation. And when they were reviewing my record, he saw this and he said, my gosh, what's come of it? Well, practically nothing. And so the remaining 9-10 years of his life was devoted daily, at night and all, of trying to get the true information and nominate me for the Medal of Honor.
and see, that's the thing about this, I think is really odd, Royce, is there's more documentation of the air battle from the Russian side than there is from the American side.
And they aren't prone really to brag about their losses. So I tend to think that what they say is so. The only thing that really came out at the time for our eyes was a report out of English newspaper in Hong Kong, that they must have had a contact of some sort at Vladivostok at that air base, and they said in their paper in English that there was bad news at the Soviet air base tonight, that they had engaged with the U.S. Navy and came out losers. And that's about as much as we know.
So Royce, when you get on the deck, on the snowy deck, obviously your air wing commander wants to talk to you too and find out, okay, what did you just do? What just happened? Because you have over 200 holes in your airplane when you land. 263 holes in your airplane. And obviously everybody on the deck is probably going, holy smokes, look at this airplane. And they're asking questions.
I never talked to the wing commander at all. He never contacted me. As a matter of fact, even my commanding officer, he was launched with his division of 4 to replace me and the other 3 guys that were up there to engage what was left of their attack. On takeoff below the clouds, he saw that our destroyers were firing at me, and he knew I was friendly, and he got to cease fire. Then he flew to on top and formed up with his other 3 airplanes, and they saw 2 airplanes heading back home, and they were way north of them, and they're probably almost at their home base. But as Igor reports, that 2 of them headed back, and 1 of them did make it for fuel starvation.
Mm-hmm. So, Royce, you're coming back to your aircraft carrier in a snowstorm, and the surface guys are firing at you at the same time. The destroyer and everything are firing also.
They were, of course, all in general quarters. Yeah, it wasn't mainly the destroyers. That's their position. They're circulated with defense for the carriers.
Yeah. Okay.
And at general quarters, their orders are to attack any unknown threat. And unfortunately, the coordination between the gunnery liaison officer in the CIC didn't get the information of what was going on, or didn't relay it properly. So these guys at the ready, tries to shoot.
As if a carrier landing in a snowstorm isn't bad enough, you got guys firing at you at the same time who don't know who you are and thinking you're an enemy airplane. That's just crazy, Royce.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it. I had a handful of flying the airplane and positioning and trying to get in an area where I would be best ready to land when cleared. And so I didn't see the shooting, but my first talk I ever gave regarding this encounter was at Pensacola at a symposium back there. And when I got through with my little presentation, one of the officers in the front row came up apologizing that he was one of the gunnery officers that was shooting at me.
That must have been a fascinating conversation. Sorry, I was one of those guys.
Well, I didn't say nanya. It missed me. I said, don't worry about it. All's well.
Yeah. So your conversation with the admiral, he's asking you all these questions, and they literally do cover up. I can't think of any other word for it. Cover up what happened because they're worried about geopolitics, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was instructed to never, ever tell anybody. This is just forget it, didn't happen sort of thing. And so it was. And my wife and the world knew that there'd been an encounter, but to what degree and what we knew about it would reveal that we had special intelligence that the world didn't know about.
Oh, yeah.
And they were protecting that. Besides that, if enough out there of aggravation, who knows what would happen next? Could have
Yeah.
been World War III.
Oh, absolutely. And did you get an opportunity to read the transcript of the Russian linguists that were listening to what was going on? Did they translate that into English and let you read it?
Well, they didn't let me anything. Maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago at most, I was given, well, Admiral Shelton uncovered all that stuff. In his 10 years of research, he came up with the data. That's where the truth came from, not accepted by the Navy. They say in intelligence that the first report is what is the truth. And from that point on, people are going to try and meddle with it. So they don't accept it at all.
Yeah, as we say in the flying community, Royce, and you've heard this, I'm sure, 10% of what you hear is true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, Royce, you come back in Yokosuka, you go back out again, and you fly more missions, but nobody's talking about what happened. And of course, like you said, the Korean War doesn't last much longer after November, after this engagement. And when did you tell your wife?
Yeah, I think it was mid 53 had the truth.
Yeah. When did you tell your wife about this? When Admiral Shelton started doing all the background information? And what was your wife's reaction when you go, you did what?
Point after the Russians had split from Soviet and were now Russia, things changed, and their newspapers put out the story giving the names. And following that, I guess, reconsideration in the Navy that, gee, there's the information no longer to hold it classified. I wasn't told that officially, but at a tailhook reunion, Admiral Davis Richardson, a good friend of mine, I was his wingman back when he was a CAG, commander of the air group. And he been a lot in U.S. intelligence. So he knew more than most. And he came over to me and he says, hey, Royce, about that big incident, there's more to it than is out there. Isn't that right? And I said, well, yes, sir. And he said, no longer worry about it. It's been declassified. And so that was about early 1990s.
Mm-hmm. So did you have the discussion with your wife about, hey, this has been declassified, this is what happened?
Yeah, I did. So I just said, gee whiz, I don't know if anybody's interested in this. That was a long time ago. So I said, hey, I'm going to tell Cam. That's my wife. I said, Cam, here, I've been authorized to tell you this is what really happened. She said, oh, Royce.
Now, there's been a number of things that I told my wife later on after the fact, and she kind of went the same thing. She goes, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Okay.
I've been special report on TV, I guess 4 times anyway. And she learned about it by a neighbor. Said, "Did you see your husband on TV?" "No." "What do you do now?"
What did he do now? So, Royce, let's move into the Vietnam War. And you're still
Yeah.
in the Navy, you're still flying. What airplane are you flying over Vietnam?
Well, I had a squadron of Crusaders on the Enterprise, the first nuclear carrier, on the round the world cruise in 63, something like 34. And I came back and I got a squadron of Phantoms, F4, and on the America. And then I was ordered to be a wing commander on the USS Kitty Hawk in the Pacific. Actually, I was ordered to a carrier in the Atlantic, and I said, "Isn't there a war on?" He said, "You want to participate?" I said, "What the heck am I trained for?" Of course.
Of course.
So they switched with somebody who didn't necessarily want to do that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I flew A4 attack airplanes, and I was trained in the A6, but I didn't fly combat in it. But it was a great airplane. I had a wonderful squadron in my air wing, and the F4 Phantom. I had 2 Phantom squadrons and 1 A4 squadron, so I flew with them.
So which squadron, which F4 squadrons were on your carrier deck?
213 and 114.
The Aardvarks and the Black Lions.
Yes. Yeah, you've done your homework.
Well, Royce,
Yep.
I build plastic model airplanes, okay? And I have since I was a kid.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
And
Huh,
I've
huh.
done that since I was a kid. And so you were flying F4B models, 213 and
No,
one
F4E, Echo.
Echoes.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You weren't flying, you were flying.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. No,
Jilliets.
no, I'm wrong. I was flying F8 Echoes.
F8
Yeah,
Echoes.
yeah, F4Bs. Yeah,
F4Bs. Okay.
yeah.
So Royce, I don't know if CJ showed you, we have your F9F Panther drawn as this. You see this wall tanker, the tanker above me? We have this drawn for you.
I can't really see it. The picture is cut off by some notification in black and white that fills the screen,
okay.
and so I don't see anything.
One of the things that we do, it's called Wall Pilot, custom aviation art for the walls of your home, office, or hangar. They're printed on vinyl, and you can peel them off and stick them to your walls. Royce, we drew your F9 Panther that you were flying in when you got the MiG kills. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh boy. All
right.
Very great. Yeah.
And the F4Bs from the Black Lions and the Aardvarks, we have drawn also. So I'll send you some of these things, and you can take a look at them. Okay. Cause they're really fun. And the thing is, Royce, we can put any bomb load on them, air to air, air to ground, all those different kinds of things, Mark 82s, Rockeyes. We have all of these weapons drawn that we stick on these things, and we print them, and people peel them off and stick them on their walls.
Super.
We probably have your A4 squadron done too. Were they C models, D models, or E models? Do you remember?
Yeah. A4. Oh.
Which squadron was it?
113.
VA 113.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to hook you up with some of these things so you can see them, Royce. Because the Aardvarks and the Black Lions are famous squadrons. The Black Lions are now flying F-18 Super Hornets now on the East Coast.
Yeah. I was aware of that. Yeah.
And a matter of fact, Royce,
I'm in touch with a lot of these people in the San Diego area. We have groups that meet in the morning for a meal, because some
Uh-huh.
at breakfast, some brunch, um, and one group's called Old Gold Planets. One's Bagels and Bologna. A lot of good names, and it's great fun because these people are all experienced and got good stories. But it's fun staying in touch.
Oh, it isn't it though? And see, I enjoy getting to talk to people like you that have these incredible stories. So tell us about some of your missions in the F4 over Vietnam. What time period are we talking?
Late 65 to early 67.
See, that's when everything is just heating up.
Yep. I lost a lot of good people. I lost, I think, 6 commanding officers, or at
From
least
your air wing.
commanders.
Oh my gosh.
I had a great skipper for the A6 squadron, miracle guy. That plus his next cruise, which I didn't make the whole cruise, I got relieved and reassigned before we got really deep into it. But his name was Ron Hayes, and he had a very important role as an admiral in Europe, but he ended up as deputy CNO and Sig Pack, the all-service command in the Pacific.
Yeah.
That's where I had my most important role. I was on Admiral McCain's staff when the Secretary of Defense defensively came out and reported to the press after being grilled in Congress. They said, well, what are you going to do about it? He said, I'm going to establish the office of Inspector General at every SINC level. Well, he had to discuss it with the Joint Chiefs and, out of the blue. So he tells the press about it. And there's all over the Navy and so forth, they're just learning about it. Well, it came to Admiral McCain's attention immediately, really his attention.
Yeah.
And they had to do it right now. Well, his J1, Admiral Hayworth, was a friend of mine, and I don't know why he picked me, because Navy didn't have office of Inspector General. The Air Force and the Army did. Why didn't they pick one of those guys? I say that to him. He says, you are the new Inspector General. I said, Admiral, I don't know anything about this. He says, I don't care. You are. Get with it. So first thing I did was go down to RPAC and PACAF and say, hey, I'm the new Inspector General, SINC PAC, and I know nothing about it. I want you to give me a copy of the most important instructions of organization and operation. I'm going to start plagiarizing and write all this for SINC PAC, which I did. And upon completion, I went out and inspected Communist McVeigh, 4 stars, Admiral or General Vaught. Pretty big as the Navy captain coming out and doing that. I'm sure it didn't scare him much, but he wanted to see me right away anyway. So I made my peace with him of sorts, and then wrote up the report. And about that time, they had picked my relief, who was the senior Air Force Major General in the Pacific. And then shortly after that, I got relieved and I went to Japan as Chief of Staff for Counter Westpac.
Boy, you've spent a lot of time in the Pacific, haven't you?
Oh, well, I was in from 1942 to 1980, 37 years. So I got to see a lot.
I loved flying in the Pacific, Royce. I love flying, all over the Pacific in my tanker. And you know what, Royce, that assignment at Kadena was probably the best assignment of my career, but more importantly, Royce, the most educational, because we did a lot of exercises with Carrier Air Wing 5, the USS Independence, coming down and fighting with our F-15s and their F-14s. I loved being in the Pacific. Loved it. Loved it.
Well, I have an association with the Independence. I was pre-commissioning detail in Brooklyn when it was being built. And then I was sent to Rhode Island, where the training of about 3,000 sailors that weren't required to be on hand watching the building of their ship, but being trained for their assignment on an operational carrier. So when that was completed, I went back and as we made our first deployments and so forth, I was the assistant air operations on that ship.
On the Independence.
Yeah, with the plank owner, which means you were there when it was being built.
Yes. Believe it or not, Royce, I have 2 catapult assisted takeoffs and 2 arrested landings on the Independence in the COD.
What kind of airplane?
In the COD, in the back of the COD.
Yeah.
When we were doing these exercises, we would swap crews and talk about all the different stuff that we were doing together. And we would also talk about the different war plans and coordinate all of our efforts. And I was a tanker guy. I was the guy with all the gas. So I was very popular among the air wings.
Oh yeah. We did that with submarines, of exchanging officers while we conducted training programs.
Now, that is a very different culture and breed, isn't it? The submariners.
Yeah, well, my first assignment as an officer was not as a pilot, but on a destroyer for just a short time while the other people were waiting to get their commission and wings. So I came back commissioned and then got my wings with the rest of the group being processed.
So Royce, tell us about some of the missions that you're flying in your F4s in these early stages of the Vietnam War, because you're flying MiG caps again. That must have been surreal, but you're dropping bombs and things like that too, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. That's the primary part, was air to ground missions. Yeah, one of the most exciting when I was leading a flight that we were going to hit barracks in North Korea. North Vietnam, excuse me. And we were down low and kind of coming up a valley, probably or a river below it, and getting very near the target when they were killing, hey, Kang, big, Sam. And I was being fired at by a SAM missile. And I was doing a lot of jogging anyway, probably what I would have done if I saw the missile. But anyway, it went off and it knocked off part of my tail, but it didn't really affect the flight characteristics.
That was your first experience with a SAM?
Yeah.
See, that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? Dealing with a missile coming up from the ground like that.
Yeah, I've been shot at by a lot of things, a lot of high power 85 and bigger, but they, through a radar, predict where they want their ordnance to explode, but it doesn't track you. Different story when you got a missile and it is radar controlled and it keeps up with you and it changes its course as needed. So if you're not aware of it and you're not paying attention or something, if it comes up, you're a ready target. If you see it, then you can maneuver and hopefully avoid it.
Yeah. You mentioned you lost 6 commanders, squadron commanders during the time period. That's a lot.
In the A6 squadron, two commanding officers. This guy Ron Hayes, that made full bowl 4-star, was the operations officer. And they didn't have any of these guys. This is a brand new airplane.
Mhm.
And so as they lost the senior guy, the next guy took over its command. That happened twice. Two commanding officers and Ron Hayes went from operations to CO.
Now, the A6 is one of those airplanes, one of the very first ones that was designed to fly at night in bad weather, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a night all-weather, wonderful, wonderful combat aircraft. It has what it needs and carries a load of weapons. It gives the enemy headaches because they can come in borderless. I designed a mission. We had a bridge target that was essential and high priority. And I was sent to another carrier where the task force commander was located. All four of the CAGs were there, and he wanted us to form together to have a 4-air wing attack on this thing. And I didn't like that. I was the senior CAG there, and I knew this admiral. We belonged to the same church. And I told him, Admiral, I don't like that plan. I would much rather take it by myself. Just turn it over to me. I've got A6s. These other guys don't. They're coming in with A4s and whatnot. So you're restricted in speed and stuff to the slowest airplane. Well, I picked A6s and F4s. They said all the rest of the air wing off on their regular mission, so people that are tracking it look like normal operation. The rest of us formed about 100 feet. Never got above 500 feet until the target, and we came in across the shoreline at probably 500 and some knots, and I mean, we were hot to trot. When we formed up, we never turned on anything electronic at all. No radios, no radars, nothing. So there was nothing trackable unless you could do it down to 100 feet, and that's where we were. And we popped up and surprised them, but of course, they were ready to do some shooting anyway, high value target. And we went on down where they hadn't been able to do anything to this before. We took out 3 of the 5 spans and knocked out most of their defenses, which was heavy. But it was a very successful mission.
Is this like the Paul Domer Bridge near downtown?
It's between Haiphong and Hanoi. It's the Haidong Bridge, I think.
Oh, yes. Royce, that was a very, very tough target through the Vietnam War, wasn't it? The Haidong Bridge.
Yeah. A lot of the other missions were run against even joint Navy and Air Force, and I think they always lost aircraft, and they never accomplished the mission till this one came along.
So what were the A6s carrying? Were they carrying the Mark 84 2,000-pound bombs to drop the spans?
Yeah, 1,000 and 2,000.
Wow. And was it this bridge that John McCain got shot down on trying to bomb the same bridge, or was it another bridge?
I think it was one almost central in Hanoi.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he went down and ended up in a lake, someplace near town.
Yeah. Yeah. Royce, my uncle flew with the 432nd Satan's Angels in December of 1965 on his first combat mission in an F4C. Got shot down, was taken prisoner of war for 7 years.
Boy, what was his name? I was the Navy's first head of prison war matters, and as such, I had a bigger part in prison war business than anybody else in any of the services.
His name is Robert Jeffrey, Bob Jeffrey. and he was a young captain at the time.
Kind of run it through my information center, and kind of rings a bell, but nothing special that I can remember.
He got out, but his backseater did not. And Royce, the Russian gunner that shot him down in a radar directed 37 millimeter gun emplacement, came to see him in prison and brought him his helmet. A Russian guy shot him down.
Boy, that's unique. I never heard that story.
Yeah, Russian guy shot him down. So, so in your air wing, you've got A4s, A6s, and two F-14s or two F4 squadrons,
And ADs.
and ADs. Oh, ADs. So
You
you've
bet.
got Sky Raiders too.
That guy, the commanding officer of that squadron, became a vice admiral. He was head of the Naval Academy. When he retired, he came to San Diego, and they had just lost the president of National University. And since he'd been head of a school, the Naval Academy, he was the interim president of National University for maybe 2 years.
Oh, wow.
He was
That's
a great
pretty
guy.
diverse air wing you've got with Sky Raiders, Skyhawks, Intruders,
hey.
and Phantoms.
Hey, more than that, we had C2s. This is the very first deployment of the E2. And we didn't really know what to do with them. But the officer in charge of that detachment was a friend of mine. He relieved me at Dallas at the Federal Weapons School. He relieved me at El Centro at the Fleet Air Gunnery Unit. And then he went to Pax River, our test, and he was put in charge of the E2 evaluation.
Mhm.
So the war starts, and we wanted to get it in as soon as possible. And so he was most qualified, and he came out as ONC of the det. Great guy. But we had that capability, and none of the other squadrons did, air groups.
So you're basically writing the tactics, techniques, and procedures manual for the E2 Hawkeye in combat, aren't you?
Well, we were. I wouldn't give myself any credit. I would fly with them occasionally, but we were very fortunate. Unfortunately, you have problems with big airplanes, and there was always sort of upsetting the commanding officer about how much prime space the E2s were taking
On the carrier deck.
that stuff. I knew the commanding officer on both of the trips over there, and we got along. They knew we needed that airplane, but they have other things to think of that are their responsibility.
Yeah. So did you have RA-5C Vigilantes or anything else?
Oh,
on
yes,
that aircraft?
yes. Yeah, we had those too, sure.
That's a big airplane too, though, Royce.
Oh,
So-
boy. And
so-
it's fast. We, my first mission, we were coming from Yokosuka, where I took over command of the air wing. And heading down to the Vietnam War, we got a message from, what's his name? An admiral that I know, who was the task force commander of an ASW group with several ASW carriers and a large group of ships, probably 15 or more. But 2 or 3 brand new Soviet cruisers joined the formation. And they have copies of our operations officer. They respond to orders just as though they were one of us. But it ticked off the admiral. So he contacted my admiral, which was aboard the Kitty Hawk, and wondered if there's anything we could do about it. So they had me bring a group of airplanes to come down to the group and fire our ordnance on a towed sled at target behind the ship.
Yeah.
And just to show him who was there. So I was carefully briefed by the admiral and his chief of staff. Do not do anything to the Soviets. Avoid them. Just go about your business in the normal way, ignoring them. On the way in, I got a call from the task force that your mission has been changed. You are now to hazard the Soviets. I want you to come in supersonic and buzz them. And I came back and said, sorry, sir, I've been ordered to avoid doing such. They come back and repeat, you are doing the same thing. I said, no, sir, I'm not allowed to do that. The next voice that came on was Jehovah, the admiral himself. This is Jehovah. You will do so. So we did. And we really razzed him, and especially the vigilante. That baby can smoke it. So we did that, and then we did our ordnance firing and returned, and the admiral was mad as a wet hen. And I had to keep referring to in my early days where I learned law and so forth, and the rudiments of naval officer. And that is, if you have orders to pursue something and someone senior to you comes in and tells you to change those orders and do something else, you report to him what your orders are. And if he insists on it, you carry out the orders of the latest superior officer, and he takes the responsibility. Well, I'm sure the admiral and chief of staff knew that, but every time I went to a tail hook from that time, the chief of staff, who's now an admiral, hit me with the same thing. You shouldn't have done it. I said, gee, you know about rudiments and naval laws? He didn't seem to, but nothing happened to me because I was in the right.
So did the vigilante take any pictures? Because that's what its job was. It was a tremendous photography airplane, had great cameras on it. So it's flying over the Soviet surface action group, taking pictures at supersonic speeds.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and we always escorted them with Phantoms.
Mm-hmm. Now, see, Royce, that would be a mission even I would enjoy. Flying over the surface action group. And you know what, Royce, I have a very dear friend of mine, childhood friend, who is stationed at Clark. And as you know, the Soviets would come out of Vladivostok and go right by the Philippines on their way down to.
Oh, they were big buddies with Indonesia.
Yeah, big buddies with Indonesia. And RF-4s out of Kadena would come down and fly with their Phantoms and their targeting pods, the pave tack targeting pods, and take all kinds of pictures of these things going by. And
yeah, we would intercept them and just fly formation on them or dazzle them a little bit.
Yeah.
And try not to get them to over respond.
That's a different kind of political interaction, isn't it, Royce?
Yep.
So you leave Vietnam and you're working for McCain, and you leave after 37 years. What do you do after you leave the Navy?
Well, I got an MBA and went to work for a startup company, and brilliant chemical engineers that had some developed materials that could be used in many, many different ways. It was just spectacular. They were on 700 Club. They were sponsored in Houston by the fire department and the police officers They had roofing that would be copy of what most desirable roofing is, only this was 100% fireproof. And they got all kinds of attention. And I was chosen as vice president. And they just loved me, but they didn't take any of my suggestions. I tried to warn them about what they got to do. They had as priority stuff that Mattel toy and King of Morocco and Honda motorcycle, and all of them wanted, but they would do business only if they retained 51% of the business and they didn't have any money. It doesn't work that way. And I tried to get them changed. They wouldn't. So I sort of the reading on the wall. I retired myself out of there and said, if you get your act together and I see it, I might come back. But meanwhile, I'm gone. Well, the Vanderbilts, husband and wife, great grandsons or whatever, took over my job. And in due time, their business caught up with them of over-promising and under-delivering and not getting a hold of the financial aspects of it.
Yeah.
And they went to prison.
Oh, jeez.
And I did not. I went down to the federal court, and they saw me coming and they got excited and they kind of running over, how you doing, and every sort of thing, and very little chatter, but talking to each other about what's going on. And the judge came in and of course said, all rise. And so they did, okay, see, so he says, is there a Mr. Williams in here? And I looked around, I guess I was the only one, so I raised my hand. He said, approach the bench. And I got up there and he says, it looks like they had both the offense and defense attorneys there. And it looks as though you're expected to be called as a witness, so you're dismissed. So I never got to listen in on it, but they lost the case and went to prison, including the Vanderbilts that were the vice presidents at that time.
Oh, jeez. So they make roof tiles that are fireproof. What an incredible thing.
I at that time, my friend Tom Hayward was CNO, and we had a material that was invaluable for the Navy. It was a cement of sorts, stronger than, but you could make a form, like say a pier, something you need right as you capture an island or something, and you want a pier and have the sea beast put it up, and then it takes a long time to cement to cure and all that sort of. You can pour this, and the next day you can finish your pier. Amazing stuff. It just set up so fast and very strong. Well, and just like that, same thing is for piping in the desert. A lot of that, what we have, erodes and corrodes.
Yeah.
Not so with these guys' material. So they were in Mattel toys. Oh my gosh, that was just fantastic for them. But anyway, all's history.
Yeah. Yeah, that means you could like set the pier up, pour it with this new chemical substance, and basically have it operational in less than a week.
Yes, indeed.
That's just crazy. Well, Royce, we've been going for almost an hour and a half, brother.
It's gone swift.
But, you know, Royce, talking to people like you is such a pleasure. And we're all pulling for you to get the Medal of Honor. And I know that's not something that is probably on your priority list, but because everybody I've ever talked to that has been awarded the Medal of Honor was saying, not something I was looking for. And I really, really hope that somehow they can bring all this together. And I know there's a lot of people pulling for you to get the
Well,
Congressional Medal of
I'm
Honor.
pleased with that because it's outside of my control. I never lifted a finger on my own behalf to do anything regarding it. It would be wonderful. I admit that, but it's a slippery slope. It's past the House of Representatives. We don't have an advocate volunteer to support it in the Senate.
Yeah.
So beats me how this is going to go, but I'm a kind of middleman or tail end, whatever.
Yeah. But Royce, I mean, all these different things that we've talked about, you come back from a mission shooting down 4 MiGs and you have to land in a beat up airplane in a snowstorm. That's just
True.
That's just incredible kind of stuff. That
Well, I have a manager called God, and he was with me.
Yes. And that's another thing I wanted to, you sound like a man of faith, a man of God. And I am too, very active in the LDS church, have been all my life. And Royce, there was never one time I went out on a flight where I didn't say a prayer to myself, either leaving the house, going to work, and another one at the end of the runway, getting ready to take off. All right, Father, are you there? You there with us? We're getting ready to take off. How you doing? Are you with me there? And I'm sure you're the same way.
Oh yeah, sitting on the catapult.
Yeah, sitting on the catapult. Yeah, God is your co-pilot sitting on the catapult.
Yeah,
Royce, I just want to thank you once again. Huh?
There's a certain confidence if you have faith in a deliverer. That in any case, it will end well.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Confidence. I like that term that you use. There's a certain confidence that you have going into situations like you and I have been in, particularly you've been in, where your faith in God really does cement you, doesn't it?
Yes.
Ever since I found out that Royce was going to be awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor at the State of the Union address, I thought about putting this episode back up. And previously it was just the audio, but of course this time I have the audio and the video. Royce is a national treasure. After this first interview, he called me back about 4 days later. He goes, "Hey, you know what, Mark? I've thought of more things to talk about." And we spent another hour and a half on the phone talking about his Vietnam experiences when he was an Air Wing commander in 1966-67. Thank you, Royce, for being a true American hero. But more importantly, I love what you said the next day in front of Secretary Hegseth. All glory to God. This episode of the Lessons from the Cockpit Show is brought to you by Wall Pilot, custom aviation art for the walls of your home office or hangar. There's 160 ready to print right now. If you go to the wallpilot.com, you can pick from those. We're working on some World War I airplanes, still working on helicopters because I have not mastered drawing main rotor hubs, but we're getting there. If you want a custom illustration, just fill out the custom form and send it to us. If there's an airplane you want with your name on it, tail number, unit, specific weapons load, chances are we have it and we can do that for you. Go to my All Ranks Club and join my Patreon page. That helps us support the Lessons from the Cockpit show. And spend some time on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of shorts that I have there that have done very well. Thanks once again for joining me on the 118th episode of the Lessons from the Cockpit show. reliving Royce Williams' interview once again, now that he has the Congressional Medal of Honor, which I think is fantastic. And he will be at Tailhook this year in Reno in August. He's been the last 3 years. Great place to meet this gentleman as he runs around on his scooter and at 100 years old. Thanks again for joining us. Sluggo signing out here.